Welcome to the Suits and Laterals podcast. I am your host, Chris Green, and I am joined by my cohort in crime, Damian Bowman. Damian, how you doing?
I'm well, Chris. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. This is episode 2 of Suits and Laterals, so thank you for joining us. So we're going to get into it real quick now, and we're going to start with preseason football. Football is back, Damian. Who played last night and who didn't?
Well, who didn't play was everybody, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
But the two teams were the Vikings and the Steelers.
Yeah, part of them anyway.
Yeah, part of them. But we just talked about this. So what? No Roethlisberger, no Bell.
Yep. No Antonio Brown.
No Antonio Brown. And the Steelers end up losing their place kicker.
Yep.
On the
John
ACL.
Grisham.
Yes,
Yep.
You're right. I can't say that name. I'm glad you can. And who's the quarterback for the Vikings?
Oh, Teddy Bridgewater.
Who actually didn't look terrible. Was he like 5 for 8, wasn't he?
5 for 6 in the one series that he played.
Right.
So if you went and paid for that game last night, I'm sorry.
That's got to be a premium, right, for the Hall of Fame game?
Yeah, I mean, the most noteworthy person there last night was Jerome Bettis after he got his bust at Canton yesterday. So he got to watch his team lose.
Are there any takeaways from this game at all?
Sean Swisham got hurt.
So this kind of goes back to our conversation about our preseason games worth it for your big players. And if you're Pittsburgh, when you have one of the best place kickers in the league, especially in your kind of stadium, why do you even play these guys? Like, you didn't play Roethlisberger, so why would you play your number one kicker?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of teams wouldn't, I don't think. I mean, usually they'll bring into camp like 2 or 3 kickers. You'll have your regular kicker, and then you'll have a couple of rookies or somebody come in and see, are they any good? Are they going to unseat your number one kicker and save you some money or anything like that? And obviously, Pittsburgh didn't have that, and they went with their kicker, and look what happened.
And he got hurt trying to tackle, right? I mean, it was kind of like a weird play, wasn't it?
That I didn't see it actually.
Yeah.
So I got to be honest.
So I think that he kicked it, and there was some kind of run back, and I don't know the exact circumstances, but the guy almost made it past him, and he ended up tackling him on the sideline, and he twisted his knee backwards.
Wow.
Yeah, in the preseason.
Yeah, in the first game when nobody else is playing, and you're done for the year, plain and simple.
In the third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, and that's even the bigger shock about it. I mean, if you're going to play the starter, play him for the first half, play him for the first quarter, let him get one kick in, and then after that, put in the rookies, and they didn't do that.
Do you think? I mean, if you're a NFL GM, do you need your kicker to take live snaps in the first 2 preseason games?
No. Not unless it's somebody who has a questionable history.
Right. I mean, this guy's been around. He's good.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to be looking for a new kicker. That's plain and simple.
I don't know who's available, right? Because nobody does. It's kickers. But I mean, this is probably a bigger deal for Pittsburgh than you and I are making this out to be. Obviously, you and I are from Cleveland, so this is kind of like a ha-ha moment for us. Although the Browns had their own kind of serious moment earlier today at camp with Joe Thomas. But this is kind of a big deal for Pittsburgh because, like we said before, I mean, Heinz Field's a tough place to kick in. I mean, they got the open end on one side and it's closed on the other side, but the winds are crazy and it's always cold. And
yeah, I mean, you're lucky if a kicker can hit a 50-yarder there. I know they barely even try them because it's so difficult. And you've got somebody who's an experienced kicker there, and now you're going to have to go. I got to imagine they're going to have to try to go with a retread who's got some experience at least, because I don't think you can throw a rookie into that situation.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So, one other name we didn't talk about who didn't play last night, though, was a certain running back who is
Who's
making
that?
a comeback. Oh, Adrian Peterson, maybe?
Never heard of him.
Yeah, I know. Who is that? Who's that guy? So, but of course he didn't play. I mean, that's not big news because he didn't play at all the preseason last year before his whole suspension anyway. But what do you expect from him this year?
I have to be honest with you. I think he's kind of an enigma right now as far as playing. Obviously, he's still Adrian Peterson. He's still, I don't know, top 5 in the league. It depends on how you rank the running backs. But I expect him to be really good early, and I think maybe by the time we get to November, I think maybe he's going to slow down a bit. I think it all depends on how the rest of Minnesota's offense is clicking. And I think a lot of it depends on their offensive line.
Sure, absolutely.
And I think for Minnesota, I think that maybe that's their biggest question this year is their offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, they've got Matt Khalil coming back. He had a rough year to start last year, so I mean that's important. If he's over there blocking the blind side for Teddy Bridgewater and he can hold off those defensive ends on there, that's going to be a big deal for Bridgewater, so he has some time to throw the ball.
Do you think that Bridgewater was underrated in his pro day? Like, do you think he got hurt by not wearing gloves?
Yes. I mean, you talked about Bridgewater the previous 2 seasons going into the draft last year, and everybody's like, oh, hey, this guy could be the number 1 pick and all this, and all of a sudden he ended up being the 3rd quarterback taken.
And I know you didn't see the broadcast last night, or maybe this part when they talked about it, but they said that he didn't wear his gloves in a pro day, and a lot of people, I guess he had a really bad pro day. And everybody said, oh, he always wears gloves, and he didn't wear gloves for whatever reason. I don't understand why you wouldn't wear gloves in your pro day. But they said that kind of hurt him. And it's kind of surprising that he went 3rd in that draft, because I think mechanically, he might be, I don't know, I don't want to say the best quarterback, but I think he probably would have been better than, one of the other guys who went ahead of him.
Well, he's already better than Manziel.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's not, I guess that's not a very high bar.
No, not at all. Just the fact that he stayed on the field for more than 7 quarters and actually threw a touchdown pass made him better than Manziel.
Yeah. What's going on with him? Is he gonna? I mean, I know this is off topic here, but
yeah, no, I don't know what to think. I mean, you hear people saying, well, he's working hard this year and he's looking good in practice, but then you also hear that, well, he's definitely not going to unseat Josh McCown. And I mean, really, should it take that much to unseat Josh McCown as a starting quarterback?
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this.
Yep.
You're the Browns fan here. Does it really matter which one of these guys is your quarterback this year?
Nope.
Isn't the result the same?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, really, the only advantage you may get with Manziel is you may be able to guarantee that they're moving on from him in the future. I mean, I don't know that there's really a whole lot of question about that anyway come draft time next year, depending on where they're drafting at. But I'd be shocked if anybody expects them not to be in the first 10 picks in the draft. So that would be the only thing to prove that if he can be on the field for, I mean, it's really hard to say somebody can't do it after 6 quarters. I mean, if you saw him play last year, you're like, there's no way this guy's ever going to do anything. But
he was a disaster.
Exactly. I mean, he can't stay on the field. He had the off-field issues, obviously. He didn't even put in the effort last year. So, I mean, really, last year was a complete waste of time. This is pretty much his rookie season all over again.
Okay, so I live in Cleveland and you don't, but that doesn't mean anything because you're more in tune to the Brown cycle than I am. But I have to tell you that this is probably the first time in 10 years where I can turn on the news and they're not talking about the Browns quarterback at training camp.
Yeah, isn't that shocking?
And to be honest with you, like, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of think that maybe as a city and as a Browns fan base, that maybe people are kind of recognizing that it's not all about the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's just this year because, got to be honest with you, I don't think this team is really that good. Obviously, they have not played. We'll see on Thursday how decent they are. I mean, they might not win 5 games this year.
I think that's very true. I mean, I'll be honest. I give you the quick, my opinion on what the Browns are this year. I think they'll have a solid defense. I don't see how they're going to score points.
How are their front 4 on defense? Here's the thing. You can have all the linebackers who can rush, but you need your front 4 to be able to get to the quarterback. And I kind of feel like that's the biggest need for the Browns is their front 4 aren't doing anything.
See, I think the front 4 is going to be better. I don't know that Randy Starks, the free agent signee from Miami, is going to do a whole lot. I think Danny Shelton's going to make an impact.
Okay.
I think Shelton will make an impact. I think Xavier Cooper may make an impact there. I think it was a 3rd round pick. And I like Desmond Bryant. I think he's a pretty good player. I mean, last year they lost so much. They didn't have any depth up front, and everybody got hurt. I mean, you got Billy Wynn, most of these guys are decent players. None of them are standouts. So I think it's really going to come down to what does Danny Shelton do? Is Phil Taylor going to earn a contract for next year? I don't expect it to be in Cleveland, but he's working for a contract somewhere. So if they make an impact, there you go.
Do you want Phil Taylor next year?
Probably not. I mean, he can't stay on the field. And they drafted Danny Shelton to replace Phil Taylor is what it amounts to.
Right. Yeah, and you said it earlier, the depth is the biggest problem for this team. And it's not just on the defense. I feel like it's at every position.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Like they
Absolutely.
cannot catch up. Like they
No.
draft depth at one position and then somebody leaves or somebody gets hurt and they never come back and then they, do another first round pick on another position
And the problem with that is they've screwed up so many draft picks over the years. You can't build depth because you keep replacing people because they aren't any good.
Yeah, I feel like the Browns should never draft in the first round. Is that a bad thing to say?
Yeah. It's true.
Like, I really feel like they should just trade their first round pick every year, no matter where it is. Just give me 4.
Yeah.
If we get the number 1 pick, just give me 4 second rounders, and I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, they've been pretty successful with the second rounders now that they stopped drafting wide receivers in the second round. So
well, I mean, come on. You don't need. Here's the thing. Here's 2 positions you don't need to draft in the first 2 or 3 rounds: wide receivers and running backs. After the 3rd round, they're a dime a dozen, and they're only going to be good for so many years for most cases. Exactly. So it doesn't really matter where you get them.
Nope, not really.
Do you have a Frank Gifford memory?
Oh wow, Frank Gifford.
I know this is off topic. If
no. I mean, I remember watching him on Monday Night Football, obviously, and I think he also on the HBO football show. I'm blanking on the name. I remember that. Gosh, I wish I could remember the name, and I'm just blanking on it. It used to be on HBO, and it was a great show for years. It used to have Len Dawson, and I think he was one of the guys on it too. But it was a really good show. Was it Inside the NFL?
Maybe. Was he on Real Sports with Gumbel though? A few times.
He was on there too later on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know he's definitely on with Gumbel, and I'm trying to look up the name here of that show that you're thinking of, and I can't find it, which doesn't mean anything because I'm terrible at Google. So
yeah. No, I mean, really, the other famous thing about him I remember his ex-wife. Or is she his ex-wife? Maybe she's still his wife.
No, they're still married. Kathy Lee.
Okay, yeah, Kathy Lee. So, Yep, that'd be the other memorable fact.
So, you know what I found out through all this is that obviously he played at USC, but he didn't get a scholarship. Like, he had to go to junior college.
Huh.
And walked on after.
Wow.
Which is crazy to me, right? And you think about, college football in 2015 and anybody who's any good, and obviously kids transfer from junior college to, big college all the time. But it's just very interesting that a guy like Frank Gifford back in, I don't know, what was that, like 1958 or 1960 or whatever, 52.
Long before our time.
Yeah. A couple weeks before us, did all that. And then I, remember on Monday Night Football and NBC and, or CBS. Was it NBC or CBS? It was CBS and ABC. I'm almost positive it was CBS and then he was on Monday Night Football. Because it was him, Al Michaels, and Deardoff, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, they were.
Yeah, because I think he replaced Keith Jackson.
I don't remember who he replaced.
Okay. Yeah, I want to say he was after Keith Jackson. So I just remember watching those when I was much younger. Frank Gifford and I really didn't I got the text yesterday. I was refereeing basketball games like, oh, Frank Gifford died. And I was refereeing, and so everybody I referee in this men's league, it's a men's league, but it's 18 and over, and all these kids, they're literally like 25 and 26. I say, oh, Frank Gifford died, and they're like, who's Frank Gifford?
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Like, you don't know Frank Gifford? And they're like, yeah, wait, I have no idea who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to me.
It is. I mean, I would have to imagine they know John Madden, and I mean, he's kind of the same breath. You speak of him in the same breath. So.
Well, but the thing about John Madden is that he has a video.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, but
yeah.
Frank Gifford didn't have Madden that game. So.
Right. And, the good thing about Frank Gifford is he had all those ties to Hollywood. Like everybody said, if he hadn't been a football player, he'd have been a Hollywood actor. Mm-hmm. Everybody considered
I think he was actually in a couple of movies and TV shows as well. Moving on to our off the topic, and we're actually going to come out to the West Coast here by me, and Alden Smith, a defensive lineman for the 49ers, he had a little bit of an issue the other day. He was arrested for a hit and run, DUI, and vandalism. And unfortunately for Alden Smith, this isn't the first time these incidents have happened. So the 49ers actually cut him. I hope the guy does well because it sounds like he's got some pretty bad issues with alcohol, as that's been the number one thing he's been arrested for over the years. But what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
I have to be honest with you. I only read the headline, and then obviously you and I talked before we started, and you kind of explained a little bit about what this was. And as you explained it to me, is he hit one car, and then he left, and then walked back, and that's when he got the DUI. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, they did a field sobriety on him, and he failed it, obviously.
Okay. So, I guess when you look at things like that, like everybody goes, and obviously everybody's reaction is black and white. It's this guy's the worst person in the world, or it is give this guy a chance. Like there's never an in between. Like let's wait and see. No one ever says that, or very few people actually say that. So when I saw the headline, I go, I can't believe this dude is not getting a free ride from the NFL every time he goes out. Like I can't believe none of these guys.
I say that every time I hear about a DUI.
Right. I can't believe that none of these guys refuse to call the 800 number and get a ride. That said, this guy's not all there. You know what I mean? And look, I have a DUI. I got it. Like I learned my lesson. Stuff happens. Like they're not really hard to get. But when you have status and you have money and you have privilege, you have to be smarter than the average bear. As my father would say. So yeah. So when you, especially when it's his fourth time or whatever.
This is his third.
At some point you have to grow up. And what is he, 18 or 20, or was he 23 or something like that?
I think he's like 23, 24. Yeah. Yeah. No.
And I appreciate the fact that he came back and tried to take responsibility, but you can't put yourself in that position. Now, the other side of this, from the 49ers side, I understand why they cut him, but sometimes when and this is the problem with the NFL that I have, I think that when you get these kids and you give them all this money, I think that you owe it to them and to yourselves to find a way to help them work through these issues. And I kind of wish the 49ers would have found a way to work through this with him before they just dumped him.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's an interesting point you brought up. I mean, if you listen to what their head coach, Jim Tomasulo, said, he said, we're not cutting him and ditching him. We still want to help him, but we don't think football is going to help him. We think he needs to lose football in order to correct this issue that he has. So that was their reasoning behind it. They want him to be able to focus 100% on working with this. And you can agree or disagree with how they did it, but that was their point, is what they said.
Except for when you told me what about the last link that you put in the notes. Yeah, no, that the Giants might be interested in him.
So obviously there's teams out there that look at this and say, yes, the guy's been busted for 3 DUIs. Yes, he also had a previous felony weapons charge as well. And I mean, he was suspended for 9 games last year, and then he missed an additional 5 in 2013 because of the first DUI when he went into rehab. So
he's a problem child.
He is. And like you said, you would think by now he would understand that,
Why doesn't he have a handler?
I wonder that all the time with all these guys that continue to get in trouble left and right.
Here's the thing. Didn't we talk about this last week with Winston?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If I don't even know who owns the 40 York, right? Isn't that a name?
Yep, Jed York. Yep, Jed York.
Yeah, Jeb York. Yeah. If I'm him, and this is my guy, Alden Smith, right? I mean, he's a starter, he's my linebacker, and he's got 2 of these, and he's got other issues. You know what I say? And Jeff's not here, so I'm not going to throw him under the bus. But this is why, if I'm the owner and I have all this money invested in these guys, this is why that I give some of these guys a babysitter. And I go, this is your babysitter. You don't drive, and you do whatever this guy tells you to do. And if you don't want this, then I'll cut you and you can go play for somebody else.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I agree. I mean, teams would be smart to do that. I mean, if you go back, the Dallas Cowboys did this with Dez Bryant when he came into the league.
Right. And what's that cost you? $50,000 a year to hire a guy to just drive this guy around and to keep him out of trouble?
Even more, even if they pay him 10 times that. Say they pay him $500,000.
Absolutely.
I mean, exactly. Because I mean, you're talking about millions of dollars that you're saving yourself with this.
Right.
So It just makes complete sense.
So what do you think? I mean, are the Giants going to pick him up? I mean, obviously nothing's been settled with this criminal case.
Correct.
But I have to assume, as a third-time DUI guy, and I don't know when his first DUI was, if he was in the NFL or if it was when he was in college.
The NFL. Yep.
Okay. So, and how many games did you say he missed last year?
He missed 9 last year.
So he's got to be done for a year now, right?
I would assume it's going to be the indefinite suspension at this point.
So he's in Josh Gordon territory?
I mean,
is that a good parallel?
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, I would have to imagine he is. I mean, the only reason I would say maybe not is because they changed the rules around last year. Remember, they redid all this.
Right.
So that's the only thing I wouldn't not 100% sure about. But otherwise, yeah, he's got to be in that indefinite suspension territory.
Well, we know it's at least 10 games, 10 or 12 games at the very minimum.
Yeah. So, I mean, but you think about it, if you're a playoff contender and you want to take a flyer on the guy, you have him for the stretch run.
Right.
And possibly the playoffs. So, I mean, that's a risk that some team may be willing to take. I mean, think about all the players in the league who've come back from drunk driving and other things. I mean, other than Ray Rice, which we'll get into in a minute, most of these guys seem to have unlimited opportunities to get back in the league as long as they're not killing somebody, so to speak. And I mean, even Dante Stallworth made it back in the league, and so did no, not Ray Rice.
I'm sorry, Ray Lewis is the guy.
Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was also a player for the Rams. I'm thinking of too. I'm blanking on his name, but also who had killed somebody in a drunk driving accident. So, but yeah,
and the guy from the Cowboys.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Josh Brent.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Just came back last year.
Yeah.
His teammate, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely, there's a double standard in this league, that's for sure.
Well, here's the thing, right? This is America, and we always talk about second chances and people paying their debts to society. And I think this is the good transition to Ray Rice here. If you've paid your debt to society, should these guys never be able to work?
No, not at all. Because, I mean, anybody who's been released, whether it's probation or they've served their time or whatever, has a second chance to come back into society. I mean, it may not be the ideal circumstances that they had before, but they still have that opportunity.
So why? I mean, what's up with Ray Rice? Is he going to get a job?
You know, I don't know. I think I think he's got one thing other than the incident that got him suspended with his wife. The other thing he has is that the last year he played, he didn't play very well, and he's been trending downward. So, I mean, there's just as you mentioned before, there's so many running backs out there that you don't have to spend high picks. Yeah, well, he has baggage, but
yeah, it's not even the high picks though. I mean, think about this, like if you are the Browns, right? We'll throw the Browns out there because I think the Browns are a family-friendly team, 100%. You know what I mean? Like they really care about their fans and their perception and everything. If you are Farmer, do you bring him in?
I don't think so. Not because it's Ray Rice. I just don't know. Like I said, if you just look at the production that he had and the last year he played, and don't even look at, if you didn't know the name, just say you put a bunch of running backs on a sheet and you look at the production, I don't know that you'd bring him in.
Okay, so let's spin this back to Aldon Smith. If you're the Giants and you need a running back, stretch run, do you bring him in? He's been in the playoffs.
He's been in the playoffs. It would have to depend, obviously, on what else is, if there's anything else available. If there isn't anybody who's better than him available, then yeah, I mean, you take a flyer on the guy. But if you think there's somebody that's better or not at that where he's at in his age bracket, because I mean, you know what they say about running backs, once they turn 30, it's all they're done. So
it's not just running backs, bro. It's all of us.
Yeah, well, in the NFL anyway. But yeah, I think that's what you're looking at. I mean, I don't see any reason why somebody didn't take a flyer on him. I mean, obviously there's the stigma behind him because of the domestic violence. But I am kind of surprised that nobody has taken a chance on him, at least given him an opportunity. I mean, the Ravens aren't going to do it, but that doesn't mean there's plenty of other I mean, he seems like the type that Bill Belichick would actually bring in all honesty.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that name, him or Jerry Jones. I think that either one of those guys would say, here he is, and if you guys want to get really angry at us, get angry at us. And I think that there's only so many teams that can pull that off, and I think that when you are, and no offense to the Browns or any of these other teams, but when you're a brand like the Patriots and the Cowboys, and pick another team if you want, you can say...
Seahawks.
Yeah, actually, that's actually a very good example. Although I don't think... Oh, you know what? Actually, Pete Carroll would. And actually, you know who else would? Chip Kelly. Like, I think Chip Kelly would take a flyer on Ray Rice. You know, I mean, if you think about, like, LeGarrette Blount, right?
Actually, I thought of another name, Rex Ryan.
Rex Ryan probably, too. Yeah, actually, yeah. So there's 4 or 5 teams. But I think that goes back to your coach and your front office saying, we understand that this person has issues, and they've worked past them. And in the case of Ray Rice is doing all the right things with domestic violence. Here's the thing. I don't really think that he's going to be the kind of guy that repeats this behavior. You know, like when you look at repeat offenders, I think of Alden Smith. I don't think of Ray Rice.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's a perfect example, actually, to go with that. Greg Hardy. The Cowboys signed Greg Hardy after his incident last year with his, I think it was his girlfriend or whatever. They brought him in anyway. And I mean, he's same situation pretty much. I mean, the only thing that the evidence is out there, just it didn't go to a trial for whatever reason. So I don't know the specifics, but I mean, it's kind of the same situation. So I think it has to do with what the player can still do is the number one thing. Or do they think the player can still do anything?
I agree with you, but I think a lot of it has to do with the people that sponsor these teams, the NFL partners.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
No, I know you're not, but I'm saying that because that's the part that we didn't bring up. And I think that somebody needs to say, and again, nobody condones domestic violence. Nobody thinks it's right. I mean, I think everybody's on the same page there. But I think that somebody needs to be able to say, people make mistakes. He's paid the price. He was suspended. Ray Rice didn't play at all last year, right? Correct. So he's already lost a year. And this goes back to the first question I asked you when we brought this up. Are these people never supposed to work again? And I think that that's the question that, and like him or hate him, I think somebody like Roger Goodell needs to say, they've been through the process, our process, the criminal process, all the processes, and a team says that they want him to work for them. Work, right? I mean, we're really talking about job. Yep. It's not a Monday through Friday, but it's a job.
Nope. Yep.
Right? So, I mean, if you, and I'm not speaking about you specifically, but if you get a DUI or if you get charged with domestic violence and you go through the process, is no one ever going to hire you again? Like, should you never work again?
No. I mean, I should be able to work
and
make a living,
right? And that's my point. And I understand these guys make significantly more money than you and I ever will combined. But I mean, let's not cast stones at glass houses or whatever that saying is that I don't know.
Sure, no, that's it. I think that's a good way to end it. So everybody deserves a second chance. The only question is, will Ray Rice get his at this point? Well, that's it for today's Suits and Laterals, but make sure you join us. Come to suitsandlaterals.com. You can actually download this podcast through 4lights.fm. Find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and TuneIn Radio. So check us out. Next week will be episode 3. For Damian Bowman, I am Chris Green, and this has been Suits and Laterals. Have a good evening.